Why do even the best assets, like Bitcoin, trade sideways for months at a time, sometimes even years at a time? First of all, we're going to walk through it step by step so that you understand what Bitcoin is doing right now, where it has not had an all-time high for the last 2 months. And you'll understand by the end of this video that all of that is normal, that all of the best performing assets in the world do that, and hopefully you'll understand why. Okay, so Bitcoin has not had an all-time high for about 2 months. You might be thinking, wow, that's a long time. If it was such an amazing asset, and if the world was in the process of adopting Bitcoin universally as the new form of global money, then why wouldn't it be setting a new all-time high every day? And one thing you could do is you could go back and look at other assets and say, okay, first of all, is this normal? Well, a little bit of Google searching would tell you that the Magnificent Seven stocks are what's known, are the name that's given to the 7 best performing stocks in the world. And those are Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla. I think I got all 7. Anyway, it's 7. Go Google or ask ChatGPT about the Magnificent Seven, and it will tell you which 7 companies they are. Okay, so next you would think, okay, if I know that the winners over the last 10 years are those 7 companies, then maybe I should go look at the stock price of each of those 7 companies over the last 15 years. So let's say you take the time frame of January 1st of 2010. That gets you past the Great Recession because, right, there's probably some weird wonkiness in 2008, 2009. So you go pull up the stock prices of those 7 stocks and gold, because gold has been one of the best performing assets in the last year or two. And so you pull up all of their stock prices and you start zooming in. You start looking at what did each of these 7 Magnificent 7 stocks, what did they each do? How did they perform over time from January 1st of 2010 to the present, which is about 16 years. Okay, and what you would notice is in that time, there are months or even years at a time where those companies do not hit an all-time high. That means they spike up in, let's say, 2011, and then they grind sideways for either months or years at a time. And so you might be thinking, oh, that probably means nothing was happening at those companies. But in 0% of the cases was nothing happening. During those months or years that each of the stocks that would ultimately go on to become the 7 best performing stocks in the world, during those months or years they were grinding sideways, the truth was not that nothing was happening. The truth was that a ton of stuff was happening that was not yet reflected in the stock price. And it would eventually be reflected in the stock price because that's how those 7 stocks became known as the Magnificent Seven, because their performance dwarfed everything else. So clearly, eventually, the amazing things that were happening in the background did get reflected in the foreground, which is the stock price. But there was a significant time lag. In the case of gold, there was one point from 2011, from 20 to 2019, for 8 solid years, that gold did not set a new all-time high. So you could buy gold for $1,800 an ounce in 2011 and not be up on your investment for 8 solid years until 2019. 2011 to 2019. That is a long time to be down on your gold investment. Now, subsequently, gold would triple in value, or almost triple in value, but it was spending all of that time, but it wasn't doing nothing. You see, because each of those assets, the Magnificent Seven stocks and gold, if you spent the months and years that they were trading sideways meticulously studying what was happening during those time frames, you would realize that during those time frames, those companies were not standing still. Tesla was meticulously getting better at making electric cars and better batteries. Microsoft was upgrading their software, expanding markets, optimizing their pricing strategy. Google was figuring out how to expand globally, how to monetize YouTube, how to do all of these things. Every one of those companies was doing big things in those time frames when the stock was doing nothing. So why does the stock do nothing sometimes when the company itself is doing lots of big things, which is what's happening right now with Bitcoin? Bitcoin's price is doing nothing, even though Bitcoin itself is doing huge things. If you just listen to Natalie Brunell's news block, her weekly news block, it is insane. In just those 10 minutes of news every week, all of the massive strides that Bitcoin is making forward every single week. It takes time for those amazing developments and adoption to be reflected in the price. And the reason for that is the stock price of anything, or the price of gold, or the price of Bitcoin, is dependent on not only the role that each of those things will play in the global economy. Another way to look at that is the global adoption. So the price is dependent on the global adoption of the products or services of each of the Magnificent Seven companies, or the global adoption of gold, in the case of gold. So it's dependent, for example, on Tesla. What percent of the world will ultimately drive a Tesla, or buy a robot from Tesla, or, turn on full self-driving on a Tesla that already exists? So if you knew those numbers, you would know a huge amount. But you don't know those numbers. But the other thing you don't know is speed. So those stocks are heavily influenced. The price is heavily influenced by the level and speed of global adoption. I should say the level of global adoption, but also the speed of global adoption. So even if somebody came to you in 2010, January 1st of 2010, and said, I can tell you in advance what the 7 highest performing stocks are going to be. I'm going to tell you that one day there's going to be a list called the Magnificent Seven, and here are their names. You still only know half of the equation. Because the other question is, how fast is that going to happen? When are these 7 companies going to become ultra high performing? So for example, maybe you are 8 years away from retirement, and you find out, somebody says, oh, did you know by the year 2025, gold is going to be one of the best performing assets in the entire world? And the year is 2011, and you've got 8 years to retirement. And so you put your whole retirement in gold in 2011 with the plan to retire in 2019. Well, guess what? You spend that entire 8 years down on your investment, right? Because even though gold would go on to become one of the highest performing assets of the century, which it is right now, it was not the highest performing asset between 2011 and 2019. For 8 solid years, you were down on your investment before finally in 2019, you broke even. And then subsequently doubled or tripled your investment. But that was before you even broke even for those 8 years. So because we don't know what the best performing assets are going to be in advance, and we don't know how fast they are going to become the best performing assets, that creates uncertainty, which results in speculation. So if we knew in advance what the best performing assets in the world were going to be, and we knew in advance how fast that adoption was going to happen, then we could have a pretty good guess at what the stock price was going to be. But because those two things are unknown, we are stuck with a volatile price for all of those assets. The Magnificent Seven, every other stock on the stock market, every commodity, wheat, corn, soybeans, diamonds, gold, silver, you name it. Everything you could possibly buy that trades on any sort of market has a volatile price. And the price is volatile because nobody knows in advance what the worldwide global adoption is going to be of that thing and how fast that is going to happen. So why is Bitcoin's price trading sideways for the last 2 months? Well, for the exact same reason, literally the exact same reason. We don't know what the global adoption of Bitcoin is going to be. I believe it's going to be a universal money of the future, but not everybody agrees with me right now. In fact, all you have to do is post something about Bitcoin on Twitter or on Facebook, and there's a bunch of stupid bots and even random real people that call it a scam and clearly make comments that indicate they don't understand what it is. Well, clearly those people are not adopting Bitcoin right now. And if you look at the research, only about 5% of the world owns any Bitcoin. And most of that 5% owns a very small amount. Okay, so clearly 95% of the world doesn't understand Bitcoin. Otherwise, they'd own some amount other than zero. And the other 5%, most of that 5% doesn't really understand Bitcoin either. Otherwise, they would own a much higher percentage of their net worth in Bitcoin than they actually do. So here we are, very early in the adoption of Bitcoin. Even if you knew with absolute certainty that Bitcoin would be the future monetary system of the world, which I believe it will be, even if you knew that, the price would still be volatile because you wouldn't know when. You wouldn't know how fast. There will be people who say, yeah, but I think that's going to take a while. So in between now and then, I'm going to invest in AI, or I'm going to invest in the Magnificent Seven stocks, or I'm going to buy NVIDIA stock, which is one of the Magnificent Seven. And their logic is going to be, hey, I'll just ride the AI wave, and then I'll jump out before the bubble pops, and then I'll jump back into Bitcoin before it becomes the future monetary system of the world, thereby causing volatility in the price of Bitcoin. So the bottom line is, it's not that hard. Bitcoin will be the future monetary system of the world. It will take time. I cannot predict how fast it will happen. In the meantime, Bitcoin will behave in its the equivalent of its stock price, which is its actual price you see in River or Coinbase or Robinhood, etc. It will behave like every other of the best performing assets in the entire world, which means it will spend months going sideways or trading down, even on its way to becoming the best performing asset in the world. Even while it's doing that. And even if you look back at Bitcoin, which has been the best performing asset since inception back in 2009, even in Bitcoin's own price history, there has been months or years at a time between all-time highs. Again, the question is, was Bitcoin doing nothing? Was the marketplace doing nothing? No. Behind the scenes, all of the pieces were slowly falling into place. All of the pieces that would ultimately result in Bitcoin yet again setting a new all-time high. In the meantime, you can buy Bitcoin while it is on sale. Right now, while it's on sale at $89,000 per coin, you can buy more of it. Eventually, you will regret that you didn't when Bitcoin does exactly what I'm saying it's going to do, which is it will, the price of Bitcoin over time will reflect all of this massive global worldwide adoption that is slowly happening behind the scenes. The price will eventually reflect that, and all the people that thought it was going to take a long time or wasn't happening fast enough will suddenly decide, they're missing the fastest horse, and they will rotate back into Bitcoin. The price will set new all-time highs. It will become again the fastest, best performing asset in the world. And the question is, how much Bitcoin will you own when that happens? Because Bitcoin is doing exactly what every other asset does that's a high performing asset. It's doing exactly that right now. There's nothing wrong with Bitcoin. It's behaving like every other best performing asset in the entire world, including behaving exactly the way it itself has behaved between $1 and $10, between $10 and $100, between $100 and $1,000, between $1,000 and $10,000, between $10,000 and $90,000. It does this. This is normal. So buy as much Bitcoin as you can, and eventually you'll look in the rearview mirror and you'll be very happy that you did.